You know, Warner Brothers is just terrible for me as a actor, producer, director. The issue was New Line. They didn't want to do the movie the way I wanted it done.
The movie cost $2 million.
$2 million. We got paid $5,000 a piece to do that movie.
Right, and I guess Ice Cube was gonna put up the money himself.
Right.
But New Line Cinema talked him out of it.
They said, look, ain't no sense you losing $2 million. If the movie bomb, we just take the hit.
Why Friday's cast never forgave Ice Cube starts with $5,000. Everyone got paid scraps while he kept ownership of a franchise that made hundreds of millions.
So after that first Friday, what made you not come back? What was that?
That's a good question right there. You know, it was, I wanted to do something different. I never thought about doing sequels. I never wanted to do sequels.
Chris Tucker had no interest in sequels. For years, Ice Cube blamed religion and money for Tucker's departure. But Tucker had simply lost trust after getting cheated on in the first film.
I'm hoping another Friday with Chris Tucker.
Oh, I hope it happens also.
Yeah.
You know, what is amazing about it, I'm gonna tell you the reason. They're not gonna make another fourth Friday, which is gonna be called Last Friday. They're not gonna make one
Right.
For $2 million.
Right.
That ain't gonna happen. Because everybody is not broke, we're not young.
Witherspoon knew Last Friday would never happen because nobody would work for scraps again. But the real betrayal began during the very first movie when trust was already breaking down behind the cameras. Friday was supposed to be a family project where everyone struggled together on a low-budget indie film. Ice Cube let his cast believe they were all making equal sacrifices for their art. What they didn't know was that Ice Cube had already positioned himself to get rich while they stayed poor. But while cast members thought they were collaborative partners, Ice Cube had secretly structured the entire deal to make himself rich. He used his production company, Cube Vision, to own the franchise while everyone else worked for flat fees. This ownership arrangement meant Ice Cube would profit forever, while his castmates got nothing beyond their original scale payments.
Right, and I guess Ice Cube was gonna put up the money himself.
Right.
But New Line Cinema talked him out of it.
They said, look, ain't no sense you losing $2 million. If the movie bomb, we just take the hit.
Ice Cube's first deception was letting everyone believe he was risking his own money. When New Line Cinema offered to finance the $2.3 million budget, he gladly accepted while keeping ownership through his company. The cast thought Ice Cube was gambling his personal fortune alongside them, but he had actually shifted all financial risk to the studio while keeping all the rewards for himself. This meant he would collect profits from every revenue stream: theatrical, video, cable, international, while his castmates got nothing beyond their original payments. The cast thought they were partners in an independent film, but they were actually employees in Ice Cube's business venture. Ice Cube had essentially tricked his friends into working for free while he built generational wealth from their collective labor.
The movie grow $300 million.
He could have gotten all that.
And they're not going to come back and say, we made a lot of money, we're going to give you all a bonus. That ain't some bullshit. That don't happen in Hollywood.
John Witherspoon revealed what $5,000 meant to a veteran comedian. It covered 6 months of rent at $130 monthly payments, ensuring basic housing security, while Ice Cube positioned himself to become a millionaire. Witherspoon's gratitude for poverty wages exposed how desperate the cast was for any work opportunity, making Ice Cube's exploitation even more morally reprehensible. Witherspoon understood Hollywood's brutal economics better than younger actors. When a low-budget movie becomes a surprise hit, actors with flat fees get nothing extra. No bonuses, no profit sharing, no recognition of their contribution. Ice Cube knew this system would protect his profits while leaving his friends empty-handed, yet he still chose to structure the deal this way, rather than sharing the wealth fairly.
He had ownership. He and DJ Pooh wrote the movie. He used his production company, Cube Vision, I think it is.
Okay.
So he gonna get more money. Then you get more money when you do the second one.
Friday earned $27.4 million at the domestic box office alone, over 10 times its production cost. Video sales, cable licensing, international distribution, and merchandise created continuous revenue streams flowing to Ice Cube's company. Ice Cube's careful planning ensured that every dollar of profit would flow to him personally, leaving the cast who made Friday memorable with absolutely nothing to show for their contributions. The ownership structure revealed Ice Cube's calculated approach. His collaboration with DJ Pooh on the screenplay gave him writers' credit and back-end participation, while his production company provided producers' profits and creative control. Ice Cube had systematically positioned himself to benefit from every possible revenue stream, while ensuring his castmates would never see additional compensation regardless of the film's success.
No, they didn't know. I had to pay my rent. I didn't give a damn what it was.
It was $5,000.
I had $5,000. I had to pay my rent. That rent, $130-some. I paid about three. See, I used to pay my rent 6 months ahead.
The cast bonded during the 20-day shoot because they believed they were struggling together as equals. They improvised scenes, shared meals, and created authentic chemistry thinking they were collaborative partners. The cast's genuine friendship and creative chemistry made Friday special, but Ice Cube was secretly exploiting these relationships for his personal financial gain while pretending to be their equal partner. The later discovery that Ice Cube had structured the project to benefit himself while they worked for subsistence wages felt like personal betrayal. This financial deception would poison every future interaction for 3 decades. The realization that their friend had been lying to them from day one destroyed any possibility of genuine reconciliation or forgiveness among the surviving cast members.
I wanted to do something different. I never thought about doing sequels. I never wanted to do
Until
sequels.
international
Until
commerce
they,
came
yeah,
in with
until
Rush Hour.
came. You know what? And you know what? Sometimes I think about that when I'm like, well, that might have been a good movie.
When Chris Tucker walked away from the Friday franchise, Ice Cube created a false narrative painting Tucker as greedy and unreliable. For decades, this story became accepted fact among fans and media. Ice Cube's lies about Tucker were so convincing that even people who worked closely with Tucker began repeating Ice Cube's version rather than believing their own direct experiences. But Tucker's own words reveal completely different motivations. His reasoning was artistic and professional, not financial. He wanted to challenge himself with different roles and avoid being typecast as a stoner character. Tucker's actual statements directly contradicted every lie Ice Cube had been telling about him for over 20 years, exposing Ice Cube as someone willing to destroy a friend's reputation to protect his own image.
You making big with Jackie Chan with that Rush Hour making $20 million. So I wouldn't go back to Friday either.
So that was it. It was just a money thing.
Oh, it's all about money.
Ice Cube's propaganda campaign worked so effectively that even Tucker's former castmates repeated the false narrative. Witherspoon, who generally supported Tucker, still believed the departure was purely financial because Ice Cube's version had become gospel truth. Ice Cube's character assassination was so thorough that he had turned Tucker's own friends and colleagues against him based on completely fabricated stories. The Rush Hour explanation served multiple purposes for Ice Cube. It made Tucker appear disloyal to fans, suggested Friday couldn't compete with major studios, and deflected attention from the real issue. Tucker's lost trust after discovering the exploitative financial arrangements. Ice Cube needed people to blame Tucker for being greedy rather than examining Ice Cube's own role in creating conditions that made Tucker want to leave.
Plus he got religious, and they said, you know, they don't smoke weed. They don't want kids smoking weed, see. So he said they smoking weed, and the preachers got to him and say, you can't be in a movie where they smoking weed.
The religious angle added another layer to Ice Cube's character assassination campaign. This narrative suggested Tucker had become judgmental about the material that launched his career, portraying him as hypocritical and ungrateful. Ice Cube created multiple contradictory explanations for Tucker's departure, ensuring that the truth would be buried under layers of confusion and speculation. This explanation also absolved Ice Cube of responsibility for Tucker's departure, instead of examining whether financial arrangements or working relationships influenced Tucker's decision. The narrative focused on external church pressure that had nothing to do with Ice Cube's conduct. Ice Cube systematically deflected blame for Tucker's departure onto everyone except himself, even though his exploitative business practices were the real reason Tucker lost trust.
Obviously, he would have gotten him. You know, it's not like he's going to get $5,000 to do next Friday. I mean, at this point, he's a
I got
superstar.
400,000
for the second one.
Yeah.
Okay.
The irony was that Ice Cube prepared to pay Tucker $400,000 for next Friday, 40 times his original fee. This dramatic increase proved the original $10,000 payment had been exploitative, only corrected when Tucker gained leverage. Ice Cube's willingness to pay Tucker 40 times more for the sequel proved he had been deliberately underpaying him for the original film, not paying him what he was actually worth. Even the improved sequel offer paled compared to Ice Cube's franchise earnings. While Tucker would earn $400,000 for starring, Ice Cube stood to make millions from ownership, production fees, and back-end participation. Ice Cube's sequel offer was designed to look generous while still maintaining the same exploitative relationship where he profited exponentially more than the person carrying the movie.
I mean, me and Chris is great. You know, when I did that thing for the Dodgers, he texted me, he said, man, I'm here, you're killing it. Yeah. You know, so it's cool. You know, when we first did the first movie, you know, it was so good, I had said, we ain't gonna do another one.
In 2021, 26 years after Friday's release, the financial betrayal poisoning cast relationships exploded into public view. Faizon Love's revelation about his $2,500 payment triggered a controversy exposing deep resentment that had festered for decades. Love's public disclosure finally gave fans concrete evidence of the financial exploitation that Ice Cube had been hiding behind legal contracts and industry standards. Love's interview with Comedy Hype revealed harsh realities behind Friday's success. As Big Worm, he created one of the film's most memorable characters whose threats drove the entire plot, yet received barely enough money to cover basic expenses for a few weeks. Love's revelation showed that even actors playing essential roles were treated as disposable employees rather than valued creative partners in the Friday success story.
I mean, they have a list of complaints and lawsuits and settlements behind the scenes. And if you look at the movies they've produced, I mean, you can count you can use probably your ears to count the black movies they've produced.
The timing was significant. After decades of silence, cast members were finally speaking publicly about their treatment. John Witherspoon had disclosed his $5,000 payment. Other actors made private complaints about compensation disparities, and the dam of silence was breaking. The cast's coordinated revelations suggested they had been privately discussing their shared experiences of exploitation for years before finally going public. Love's decision to turn down next Friday for $5,000 demonstrated the impossible position cast members faced. The sequel offer represented a 100% raise, but remained poverty wages for starring in a major studio comedy. Love's rejection of Ice Cube's generous sequel offer exposed how insulting the compensation structure remained even when doubled, proving that Ice Cube had no intention of fairly sharing Friday's massive profits with the people who helped create them.
But they continue to ignore, dismiss, or actually sell away the projects that I'm a part of. So, you know, this has been going on for over 20 years, and I don't want projects over there.
When fans accused Ice Cube of robbing his own people, they articulated frustrations building for years. Here was someone positioning himself as a champion of black economic empowerment while using exploitative labor practices against black performers. The fan backlash revealed that audiences had figured out the contradiction between Ice Cube's public persona and his private business practices, making his defensive response seem even more dishonest. The contradiction between his public image and private business conduct created cognitive dissonance demanding explanation. Ice Cube's defensive Twitter response revealed his disconnect from the cast's perspective. Ice Cube's inability to understand why people were angry about his exploitation showed how completely he had rationalized his behavior and convinced himself that legal contracts justified morally bankrupt business practices.
Warner Brothers is just terrible for me as a actor, producer, director.
His response, "I didn't rob no body," was technically accurate but emotionally tone-deaf. The $2.3 million budget and 20-day shooting schedule justified scale wages legally, but ignored moral dimensions of wealth distribution and partnership recognition. Ice Cube's legalistic defense revealed his complete inability to understand the difference between what's legally permissible and what's morally right when dealing with friends and collaborators. His argument that actors could have simply said no missed the power dynamics involved. These were struggling performers grateful for any work opportunity, lacking leverage to negotiate better terms or knowledge of potential profitability. Ice Cube's victim-blaming response showed he had convinced himself that exploiting desperate actors was acceptable because they technically had the legal right to refuse poverty wages.
Didn't the Chief Toby think Kevin Hart would never be a star?
Yeah, this is what I heard is that he said to, not only my manager, but to the guy that was producing with me that, two black leads are not gonna sell overseas.
Ice Cube's escalating conflict with Warner Brothers became a personal vendetta, costing his Friday family everything. His transformation from collaborative filmmaker to industry warrior turned cast members into casualties of a war they never wanted to fight. Ice Cube's ego battles with studio executives became more important to him than the welfare of actors who had trusted him to protect their interests and careers. While John Witherspoon, Tommy Lister, and A.J. Johnson aged and faced health challenges, Ice Cube refused to compromise on his vision for Last Friday. His artistic integrity mattered more than their need for a final payday. Ice Cube chose ideological purity over practical solutions that could have given his aging castmates one last opportunity to complete their characters and earn meaningful compensation.
The issue was New Line. They didn't want to do the movie the way I wanted it done.
The Toby Emmerich era at New Line represented everything Ice Cube resented about Hollywood's power structure. Emmerich had authority to approve or reject projects based on commercial considerations conflicting with artistic visions. Ice Cube's refusal to work within these constraints meant his cast was held hostage to an ideological battle between creative control and corporate oversight that had nothing to do with their performances.
So they had a guy in there named Toby Emmerich for years, and he wouldn't make the movie. We was trying to get it made. I wrote a script. They said it was,
The rejected scripts became symbols of struggle between black creative autonomy and white corporate control. Ice Cube believed he had written quality screenplays honoring Friday's legacy while addressing contemporary issues. Ice Cube's artistic vision may have been valid, but his unwillingness to compromise or collaborate meant that his castmates would never get the opportunity to bring their characters to life one final time. The studio's rejections felt like artistic and cultural dismissal, not just business decisions, but the personal nature of Ice Cube's conflict with Emmerich made collaboration nearly impossible. Ice Cube's inability to separate personal vendettas from professional relationships doomed any possibility of finding middle ground that could have benefited everyone involved in the Friday legacy.
they was like, jail's not funny. It's too much time in jail. How can you make jail funny? And I'm like, man, y'all don't know what y'all talking about? Then they come out with Orange is the New Black, Let's Go to Prison, all these movies about that, and I'm like, see, more Hollywood execs don't know what the they talking about.
But
Ice Cube's creative battles revealed his inability to separate personal vindication from professional necessity. When Warner Brothers questioned his prison-based comedy concept, he interpreted it as an insult rather than a market concern addressable through collaboration. Ice Cube needed to be proven right more than he needed to get his castmates paid, revealing that his ego was more important to him than their welfare and professional needs. His need to be proven right became more important than finding solutions that would get his cast paid. The emergence of successful prison comedies later felt like vindication, but was cold comfort for cast members who died waiting. Ice Cube's intellectual victory meant nothing to the people who had died without getting their final payday or completing their character arcs, because he refused to compromise his creative vision.
John Witherspoon died. Then Tiny Lister died. Then A.J. Johnson died. And then I was like, y'all. You know, y'all just killed the culture. I mean, not killed the culture, but you guys are harnessing the happiness of the culture. You're holding the happiness of the culture hostage.
When Ice Cube replaced Chris Tucker with Mike Epps for next Friday, he implemented a strategy defining his approach to managing collaborators for 2 decades. Find someone desperate enough to accept whatever terms offered, then use their gratitude as proof anyone demanding more was unreasonable. Ice Cube's replacement strategy was designed to create a system where actors would be grateful for exploitation, rather than demanding fair treatment and equitable partnerships. Mike Epps entered the Friday universe as the perfect replacement because he brought none of Tucker's complications or leverage. He was hungry for opportunities, grateful for exposure, and willing to work within Ice Cube's established financial structure. Epps represented everything Ice Cube wanted in collaborators: someone who would never question his authority, demand fair compensation, or challenge his creative decisions.
It's gonna take the movie to another. I was trying to take the movie to another studio because New Line had Ride Along. They had Ride Along, New Line. They didn't make it. I took the movie out.
Ice Cube's pattern of abandoning studio partners when he couldn't get his way created a reputation for being difficult. It also demonstrated why his collaborators felt insecure. If he would take major projects to competing studios, what loyalty could supporting actors expect? Ice Cube's business relationships were entirely transactional, with no genuine loyalty or commitment to people who had helped build his success over the years. For Mike Epps, these business battles meant watching opportunities disappear while remaining loyal to a cursed franchise. He had built his post-Friday career assuming more sequels would follow, but studio conflicts meant his signature role led nowhere. Epps's loyalty to Ice Cube was destroying his career prospects, while Ice Cube focused on ego battles that had nothing to do with Epps's professional needs or financial security.
Me, Kevin Hart, Will Packer, Tim Story made a hit. Straight Outta Compton was supposed to be a New Line. They only wanted to spend $18 million to do the movie. The movie cost $34 million. So, took that movie, Universal, made a hit.
The success of Ride Along and Straight Outta Compton at other studios proved Ice Cube's creative instincts, but explained why Warner Bros. Became reluctant partners. Every time Ice Cube made hits elsewhere, it reminded them of lost profits from refusing his demands. Ice Cube's pattern of punishing studios by taking projects elsewhere created a cycle of retaliation that ultimately hurt his collaborators more than it hurt the executives he was trying to punish. This cycle of resentment made future Friday collaborations increasingly unlikely. Mike Epps's faithfulness to Ice Cube was rewarded with career stagnation rather than the steady work he'd been promised. Epps had sacrificed other opportunities to remain available for Friday projects that never materialized, leaving him professionally stranded by his loyalty to someone who cared more about corporate warfare than his collaborators' careers.
When I was going to take Friday, they was like, man, you making us look bad. I said, well, make the movie. And then they bullshit.
New Line's eventual decision to greenlight last Friday came from embarrassment rather than enthusiasm, dooming the project from inception. When studios make movies to save face rather than believing in them, they typically under-resource and under-promote those projects. Ice Cube had won his battle through corporate blackmail rather than creative collaboration, ensuring that even victory would feel hollow and unsatisfying for everyone involved. The bullshit followed meant years of development hell for everyone involved. Scripts were commissioned and rejected. Pre-production started and stopped. Cast members were placed on hold while negotiations dragged endlessly. The Friday cast spent years in professional limbo while Ice Cube and studio executives fought over creative control, wasting the final years of aging actors who would never get another chance to complete their characters. By 2024, surviving Friday cast members learned the hardest Hollywood lesson. Loyalty flows one direction, and people who promise to take care of you often hurt you most. Why Friday's cast never forgave Ice Cube wasn't about money. It was about trust wasted and friendship sacrificed. John Witherspoon's final assessment of last Friday wasn't delivered with anger, but weary acceptance of someone who finally understood their situation. After years believing Ice Cube's promises about future sequels, he realized the franchise was dead.
What is amazing about it, I'm gonna tell you the reason. They're not gonna make another fourth Friday, which is gonna be called Last Friday. They're not gonna make one.
The transformation from desperate actors, grateful for $5,000 to established performers with financial security, revealed how Ice Cube's power over them had evaporated. They no longer needed him to survive, meaning they could demand fair treatment or walk away. Witherspoon's reminder that Friday wasn't the only thing that helped me served as personal pride and subtle criticism. While Ice Cube built his post-NWA career around Friday and Warner Brothers battles, cast members diversified and learned not to depend on single projects.
Everybody is not broke, we're not young, we're not this and that. They're not young and they're not gonna be doing, I don't need to pay my rent, I got mortgages now.
Yep.
So I don't need all that.
The surviving cast watched Ice Cube transform from collaborator into corporate entity, speaking about Friday in terms of intellectual property and distribution rights rather than friendships and creative partnerships. The man who once improvised scenes became someone conducting business through lawyers and publicists. They understood Ice Cube's Warner Bros. War had been real and justified, but recognized their individual careers were sacrificed to his larger political battles. They respected his principles while resenting conscription into conflicts they hadn't chosen. The deaths of John Witherspoon, Tommy Lister, and A.J. Johnson created permanent divide between Ice Cube and surviving cast. While he mourned publicly and blamed studio executives, they mourned privately, wondering what might have happened if he'd prioritized their welfare over creative control. Mike Epps emerged as the most tragic figure because his loyalty was rewarded with disappointment. Unlike Tucker, who escaped early, Epps invested his prime career years in a franchise leading nowhere, turning down competing offers to remain available for sequels that never materialized.
It ain't up to me. It's a whole. I don't own Fridays. Studio own Fridays.
Yeah.
So it's really up to them, and it's really up to. And then of course Ice Cube, because he's a big part of that. But who knows?
The final insult was Ice Cube's recent announcement that last Friday was moving forward with new studio leadership. After 3 cast members died waiting, after decades of broken promises, after relationships were destroyed and careers derailed, he was ready to make the movie. The Friday cast's inability to forgive Ice Cube wasn't about money or career disappointment. It was about realizing they'd trusted someone who valued his own success more than their survival. They'd believed in the Friday family concept, while he'd always seen it as a business arrangement. In the end, surviving cast members achieved something Ice Cube never could. They maintained their dignity while losing everything else. They hadn't needed to destroy relationships to protect their principles or wage public wars to maintain self-respect. They simply learned to recognize when friendship had become exploitation and walked away from the table before losing more than they could afford. The betrayal wasn't financial. It was personal, and that made it unforgivable. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.